Well, good morning, everybody. We are very fortunate today to have Jean-Claude Ménard, former Chief Actuary of Canada, visiting Carleton University. Jean-Claude has a distinction to set a record as the longest serving Chief Actuary in Canada's history. So heading this office from 1999 to 2019. Mr. Ménard graduated from Laval University with a bachelor degree in actuarial science. And after graduating from Laval, he began his professional career working for a private insurance company, and later worked in public sector, eventually becoming Chief Actuary of Quebec Pension Plan in 1995 and Chief Actuary of Canada in 1999. The Office of Chief Actuary is responsible for ensuring that Canada Pension Plan remains healthy and sustainable in long term. This office also monitors and evaluates other programs like old age security and closer to younger people, Canada Student Loan Program. This office also ensures sustainability of various federal pension plans. And it is absolutely fair to say that the work of the Office of Chief Actuary affects the life of every single Canadian. Jean-Claude Ménard is a fellow of the Society of Actuaries and a fellow of the Canadian Institute of Actuaries. And so he is a frequent speaker at the symposia organized by these professional societies. Mr. Ménard is also actively engaged in international work as an actuary, collaborating with the International Social Security Association and United Nations International Labor Office. Jean-Claude is doing important actuarial work in countries where actuarial profession is not well established. Our meeting today will be informal, and we will begin with an interview-style discussion between me and Mr. Ménard, and after which we will open the floor for questions from the students. And so to make this meeting interesting, so please be bold and ask questions. And we have enough social distancing as it is right now. So when you ask questions, so we would prefer if you turn on your video and so that we can see you. And so if you have a question to ask, so please message me in chat, and then I will give you the floor. All right, so and now, so it is my great pleasure to welcome Jean-Claude Ménard to Carleton University.
Thank you, Yuli. Good morning, and good morning to all the listeners.
All right, so Jean-Claude, so let me ask you a question. So why did you choose actuarial profession for your career?
Well, there are many reasons, Yuli. And I think the first reason is my love for mathematics. And the second reason is likely my genetics. Is it possible to have it in your DNA? Well, my mother was a professor, teacher of mathematics for more than 37 years in grade 9. And my father was an insurance broker for more than 40 years. Although the profession of actuary was not very well known in the 70s, especially amongst the francophones, I had the chance to know what an actuary does pretty soon during my schooling years. I remember a gift that I received from my parents when I entered university in 1976. Imagine a calculator HP 25 with reverse Polish notation. Imagine one of the first calculator on the market with a memory of 4 registers. It tells a bit how old I am now. Quite expensive at that time, by the way, but so useful to understand programming. So I guess I have accomplished the dream of my parents and my own dream as well. So the third reason was social justice to become an actuary. And this reason percolated during my time at university.
Well, could you perhaps tell us some more about your university years? I'm sure it was different from what we have today.
Yeah, different, but at the same time, there are a couple of, I think, similarities, I would say. There are so many things I can say about my university years, but I will try to be concise and not to reveal all the secret of our university life or my own university life. So at the beginning, we were 125 students during the first year. Uh, it was quite easy to be in the first quartile at that time. Then, during my second year, I decided to be active in the Student Council of Actuaries. It was fun to organize social activities, but there was a catch-22. During the second year, we were suddenly only 65 students studying in actual science. Suddenly, it was more difficult to be in the first quartile. I decided to leave the student council during my third year because I was suddenly competing with a much stronger group of students. 37 people graduated in 1979, and I was in the third quartile. Too much fun during my second year, and I paid the price for it. But no regret, it shaped the person I became later in life. So going back strictly to the actuarial science, one reason to become an actuary was my strong desire for social justice. And I was a student at Laval University in 1976 when an experienced actuary, Jacques Roy, a former superintendent of insurance in Quebec, was invited to speak to the students. At that occasion, he said that the Quebec pension plan and the Canada pension plan were good basic retirement plans, but they were chronically underfunded, raising issues of intergenerational equity. At that time, I did not know that I will become a fellow of the Canadian Institute of Actuaries, but I knew that it will be a good place to work to try to solve this huge problem for the benefit of the current and future generations of contributors and retirees. At the very beginning of my career, I was motivated by the public interest. I had a strong desire to change the world. It was not very different than the current generation of young retirees. When you are young, you want to change the world, you want the world to be a better place to live.
And Jean-Claude, some students here are first-year students. Would you have advice for them on university studies? So which fields of mathematics and statistics to focus on, and also what courses outside of mathematics and statistics could be useful as an asset for a future actuary?
Thank you for the question. Very good question. You should first, I think, in my opinion, focus on the actual exams from the Society of Actuaries based in Chicago, Illinois. Try to pass those exams as quickly as possible. In my opinion, all courses on statistics are important. But I want to share something personal with you about the actual exams. In 1999, I was appointed the chief actuary of the government of Canada. Quite an achievement in a certain way that I'm still very proud of, especially for a francophone native from a very small city in province of Quebec. I was fortunate to go in a private secondary school, the Collège Bourget in Edigo. I like to think that it is the place where I learned to be rigorous. So rigor is extremely important in our profession. Now, let me tell you something. You might think that I was very successful with my actual exams. How would it be possible to get this position after all if you're not one of the best amongst the best? The truth is that I am not. I did not pass all actual exams at the first try. It was somewhat easy to get the associate designation. So the first 5 exams with strong mathematical content in it. But it was another story for the second part. It was very painful for the second half. And indeed, I even failed exams 4 consecutive times before passing one. Once I got one in the second half, I never failed again and I passed the remaining 4 exams very quickly. But the lesson learned here is very simple. Sometimes an individual learns more from failures than success. So I learned what rigor means during my student years in Collège Bourget, and I learned what determination means with the actuarial exams. So my advice to you, if you fail an actuarial exam, it's not the end of the world. Use this opportunity to grow as a person and to shape, I would say, to be more determined the next time. So what courses outside mathematics and statistics will be good asset? Well, programming courses in my time were definitely crucial. Today, I would say any course on communication would be a very valuable asset and take more than one. Economy, finance, biology, especially if you choose the retirement benefits track, and law come to my mind. But please do not neglect your communication skills. It might be the area that could make the difference between being hired by an employer or not.
Very interesting. And well, you have a wealth of experience in actuarial field, and so you know a lot about actuarial professions. Could you tell us about what are the career options in actuarial profession, and what are the differences between these options?
Yep, I will just go and go there.
Okay, yeah, we have something on the screen now.
Yeah, okay, perfect. So I have a short PowerPoint presentation to explain the different paths to become a fellow of the Canadian Institute of Actuaries and a fellow of the Society of Actuaries. So what you have in front of you here is the ASA pathway, and the ASA means an associate of the Society of Actuaries. So an associate of the Society of Actuaries is someone who has demonstrated knowledge of the fundamental concepts and techniques for modeling and managing risk. The associate has also learned the basic methods of applying those concepts and techniques to common problems involving uncertain future events, especially those with financial implications. There are 12 requirements to become an ASA effective July 2018. The VEE, so the validation of educational experience, topics are not formal prerequisites for the preliminary exams and may be fulfilled independently of the exam process. However, you must pass 2 SOA or casualty, and I will come back later to what it means, or CIA actual exams before applying to have your VEE credit added to your record. And what you have in front of you is only a picture, but if you go on the SOA website, you could click on each of this box and to see the exact requirement for each exam. The second pathway is the chartered enterprise risk analyst. And this person has demonstrated knowledge in the identification, measurement, and management of risk within risk-bearing enterprises. Further details, again, are available on the SOA website. You have a link at the bottom of the screen. The third is the fellowship pathway. So a fellow of the Society of Actuaries has demonstrated the knowledge of the business environments, within which financial decisions concerning pensions, life insurance, health insurance, and investments are made, including the application of mathematical concepts and other techniques to the various areas of actuarial practice. The fellow has further demonstrated an in-depth knowledge of the application of appropriate techniques to a specific area of actuarial practice. And I want to stress here the specific area of actuarial practice, and I will come back to that in a few minutes. So you have here the six specialty tracks, and to name it, the corporate finance and ERM, enterprise risk management. The second one, quantitative finance and investment. The third, individual life insurance and annuities. The fourth, retirement benefits. The fifth, group and health insurance. And lastly, general insurance. And when I said earlier, I stressed a specific area of actuarial practice. When you become an actuary, you are kind of, you have a specialty in one of those tracks. So for example, my specialty is retirement benefits. And I cannot, tomorrow morning, I could change my career, of course, but I cannot the next day do group and health insurance and pretend that I have the competence to do it. So it's very important, and it is also in the professional rules of conduct, the professional standards of practice, to make sure that as an actuary, when you do a job, you are qualified to do that job. And for each track, if I go on the next slide, for each track, you have all the modules and the exams required to fill the track. And of course, if you start with one track and then you stop and you go to another, there's no problem with that. But the only thing is it would get you longer to get your degree. I will now, sorry. Oh, I click on this. Oh, interesting. Sorry. Okay.
Yeah, if you click on something, it opens a window only for you. So we will only see your PowerPoint presentation.
Thank you very much. I'm not very familiar with all the technicalities of Zoom. So let's try to go. Yeah, I will skip and come back to this one later. Now I want to speak a bit about the Canadian Institute of Actuaries, because after all, we are in Canada, and you need your diploma from the Canadian Institute of Actuaries if you want to practice as an actuary in Canada. So there are two educational pathways within the CIA. And again, they can be more details could be found on the URL link provided. The requirements to become an associate of the Canadian Institute of Actuaries and a fellow of the Canadian Institute of Actuaries, as I said earlier, are described on the CIA website with a lot of details. But they are also described on the SOA website to assist Canadian candidates in understanding the SOA education pathways, and especially what is required to attain actuarial designations with the Canadian Institute of Actuaries. So you want to make sure that once you do the exams through the SOA, you take the right exams for to get your diploma of the Canadian Institute of Actuaries. So I do not pretend here to be an expert. And for specific questions, you should contact the CIA staff. They are very efficient and very kind people, and they will be very pleased to answer any questions, any requests you may have. So my understanding is that once you complete the requirement to be an ASA from the Society of Actuaries, you become automatically an ACIA once you attend and pass the CIA professionalism workshop. For the FCIA, so the fellowship requirements, the CIA recognizes the following SOA fellowship tracks, so corporate finance and ERM, quantitative finance and investment, individual life and annuities, retirement benefits, and growth and health tracks. So if you look at the FSA pathway, you will see that there's a six track mentioned general insurance. And this one, if you follow that through the SOA, it won't count for your CIA. So you are limited to the first five specialty tracks. Um, and of course, candidates are also required to complete the CIA Practice Education course, the PEC, and must meet practical experience requirements. So at the bottom of the slide, you see you need 3 years of experience requirement to become a fellow of the Canadian Institute of Actuaries. I have one person in my office, a brilliant person, a young actuary, so brilliant that he became an FSA very quickly, but the problem is you still need 3 years of working experience. So he got, let's say, he became a fellow of the Society of Actuaries in 2000. I don't remember the exact year, maybe 2016. And he had to wait until 2018 to get his FCIA just because he needs the 3 years of experience. And I think it's a good thing to, very good requirement. Now, you think all this is complicated? Well, I'm not finished yet. instead, instead of taking actual exams from the Society of Actuaries, you could decide to pass actual exams from the Casualty Actuarial Society to become a fellow of the Casualty Actuarial Society and then meet the requirements to be an FCIA, fellow of the Canadian Institute of Actuaries. So to summarize, you can follow one of the 5 tracks sponsored by the SOA or the track sponsored by the Casualty Actuarial Society, which is property and casualty, to become a fellow of the Canadian Institute of Actuaries. Uh, Again, on both websites, the SOA and CIA, there's a ton of information and much more. Since these documents are HTML documents, you click on it and you have more information. So take the time to look at them. It's, I think, very important for your career. So I will just stop sharing now. Okay.
Thank you, Jean-Claude. This is extremely informative and really a wealth of information. Well, actuarial world is not just organizations, but it's also people. And I wonder if you have advice. So how could students do networking in professional networking in the actuarial field? And bottom line, so how to get the first job?
Very good questions. The same question I had 40 years ago. So I will first start with the professional networking, because there's an organization that exists today that did not exist in my time, and it's the Actuarial Students National Association, found in 1989. Their next annual convention will be virtual for obvious reasons, and will occur from January 15 to 17 of 2021. At that occasion, students and employers from across Canada will build professional networks with seminars held by employers and guests of different industries across the discipline for students of the conference. And at that occasion, they will brainstorm new ways of reimagining actual science. This will be their 31st convention. And I think it's a good place to start to be acquainted with the profession and with your other colleagues in across Canada. I mean, students and the employer. Now, how to get a job after graduation? 2 things come to my mind. If you could complete your ASA designation in the year following your graduation, if not before, will facilitate things for you. Second, put a lot of efforts on your CV. In my opinion, you need to find accomplishments that would differentiate yourself from the others. It is a competitive market and it will remain competitive. Do not neglect your communication skills, both writing and oral. Besides being fluent in English, learning a second or even a third language could also make a big difference.
Okay, very interesting. Um, well, so if we look in the future, so what do you see as new trends in actuarial field? And so what do you see happening in the future with the profession?
Yuli, it's a very difficult question to answer. Uh, Artificial intelligence, definitely, big data, and climate changes are just a few of the issues impacting the profession. Let me say that I'm not a specialist in these fields, except for the big data concept. The simplest way to describe the artificial intelligence is the gigantic capacity of computers to process tons of information at the speed of light. I think we will witness important changes in future societies that are difficult to tackle today. Smaller, faster, better, smarter seem to be the way of the future. Now, big data is all about the accessibility of vast amount of data and the possibility to process this information faster because of the enormous power of computers. One word of caution here. As a former federal public servant, I was always very conscious and responsible with the data the Office of the Chief Actuary received from different sources. The OCA receives vast amount of data and information on Canadians, on almost all Canadians. It is necessary to receive that information to do our statutory work. But I want to reassure you, it cannot be used for any other purpose than to meet our statutory obligation, carefully defined by Parliament. In our electronic age, privacy has become a public concern of paramount importance. In my own opinion, the privacy of Canadians should be protected, even sometimes against their own will. So not only big data, the big data concept is important, but also protecting the information. And if you have seen the news recently, there was a big breach in Finland where the information of mental health issues of patients were stolen from the database. And worst, these people receive emails to ask for money to otherwise their information will be made public. So it's big data is a trend that will continue and will indeed increase in all fields in our life, but protecting this information is extremely important.
Yeah, this
Climate
is
changes are a serious issue. I like to see more actuaries involved in that domain. It seems to me that this subject should become one of the most important projects of the Canadian Institute of Actuaries in the years to come. It should be on the program of each annual CIA conference going forward. By the way, each year, the CPPIB, the Canada Pension Plan Investment Board, produces a report on sustainable investing so that CPP contributors and beneficiaries, as well as other Canadian and international stakeholders, can see how environmental, societal, and governance factors are incorporated in the way they invest. The climate changes issue is growing in importance. Now, let me conclude with one thing. What can future actuaries do to be better prepared for the future during these tumultuous times? Is probably a good question to ask. The COVID-19 pandemic is a cruel reminder that the future is uncertain by definition. In my opinion, actuaries have been trained to be excellent problem solvers, especially when it comes to solve financial issues. Actuaries are good to process numbers, so I would say use your technical abilities to present practical solutions to clients, but do not neglect your communication skills. In my career, when a minister did not understand me, it was not because he or she was a politician. It is because I did not work hard enough to explain the issues properly. In my opinion, the actuaries of the future will be those who have the ability to explain complex issues in layman terms. It may look like an old cliche, but no computer will replace the human ability to speak to another human. The ability to summarize without losing the rigor of the actual work. Do not confuse a complete summary in layman terms with a public relation exercise. Keith Mitchell, a well-renowned pension expert, likes to quote Albert Einstein: make things as simple as possible, but no simpler. So thank you very much, Yuli, for all these questions, and I'm available to answer any questions you may have. I hope I will be able to hear them correctly, so speak loudly, because again, I'm aging, I'm retired, so I'm a bit slow, so slower than in the past. So speak loudly, and I will try to answer your questions.
Thank you so much, Jean-Claude. Well, we have a first question from Cameron. So Cameron, would you mind to perhaps ask a question yourself? We'd appreciate that. Hello.
Well, hi, Mr. Paul Ménard. Thank you for taking my question. I read Nassim Taleb, and I wondered if you have opinion about him, and I wonder if actuarial scientists try to predict Nassim Taleb.
Who is he, Cameron? I don't know this
the
person.
Black Swan?
Oh, yes.
The book?
I know the Black Swan. Yeah, I read part. Is he the author of the book Black Swan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he's a professor of risk.
Yeah.
He studies risk and that kind of stuff. So
okay.
I guess my question is, does actuarial scientists try to predict things like COVID, like the impact of future events, stuff like
that? This is a very good question, and indeed, yes, the actuarial profession has tried to do it. Let me give you two examples in my mind. The first one, there was an interesting chart presented a long time ago by, I think, the International Actuarial Association, and they put all risk on a chart with from low to high probability and low to high risk. And you even have the visit of aliens on planet Earth on this chart. So far, it's not the case. But you have also the pandemic. And the pandemic was in the low probability area, but with a high important economic and demographic risk. The second thing I have in mind is without going too far in terms, because I have to respect the confidentiality, what happened, there was a stress episode before the COVID-19. And I think it occurred in 2012, if I'm not mistaken. And at that time, the Office of the Chief Actuary was asked to look at the impact on the old age security program. So, of course, you have two things here to take into account: the higher mortality caused by any pandemic, and also the impact on the economic growth. And so that's the kind of, and were we right in assessing the value, the stress? Well, stress at the end, it was kind of nothing because we were able to eradicate very quickly the virus. It's not the same with COVID-19. But yes, we are, I think, suited to do that kind of work. Thank you for your question, by the way. Very appropriate these days.
All right.
Thank you as well.
Thank you, Cameron. We have a question from Patrick. So Patrick, if you don't mind to ask your question and turn on the camera. Thank you. Welcome.
Yes. You, Mr. Ménard, you went a little bit just recently about the best odds of getting a job. You suggested that we take our actuarial, the ASA designation as soon as possible after graduating. And I was wondering, how many actuarial exams would you recommend taking so that future employers might best take you seriously?
Well, you should, you go back to the, I would say the ASA pathway, and you have all the exams, and you should have, what you have 2 columns there, introductory and actuarial. And I think you should at least get these things, because once you get these exams, you will also get the VEE. But there's also in the introductory, I would say the first 3 columns of this chart is very important. If you don't have these 3, I'm not convinced that an employer will even look at your CV. Sorry for my honesty, but again, I could disclose that when I was hiring people, I always look at do the students have the basic knowledge behind the actuarial science. The rest could come later, but you need at least to master the mathematical concepts, the contingency events, and have a pretty sound knowledge of statistics at the same time.
All right, thank you.
And one thing that I would say also is computers are faster than humans, but don't let a computer fool yourself. You say, oh, I don't need to understand that because after all, the computer will provide me the answer. Well, you need to, the rigor is behind your training or your training at university is extremely important, and the rigor cannot be obtained just by pressing a button with any on any software, if I may say. So you need to understand the concepts behind the programming before saying, okay, now I don't need to do that anymore. I just need to press a button. No, you need to think about it. You need to understand the mathematical formula behind anything. And as I said earlier, once you send your CV to an employer, again, the 3 columns of the essay, first 3 columns of the essay pathway are a must.
All right, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Jean-Claude. So this is really illuminating. Do we have any more questions from the audience? Well, so I think we had a very good meeting today, very insightful, and I learned certainly a lot about actuarial profession. So I think wholeheartedly Jean-Claude Ménard for taking his time and coming here and sharing his experience with us. So
Thank you.
thank
You very much for your presence. I hope you didn't lose the last hour with me, because each hour counts these days. And but thank you very much again for the opportunity given to me to speak to you today. And if it's possible, if you need more information, again, you go either on the CIA or SOA website, and you could find much more information that I provided you today. Thank you.
Jean-Claude, we actually have one more question,
Yes.
if we may. So I think Patrick has one more question to ask.
Yeah.
Yes. This one's more about the public service side of things. Would you recommend, if we were to graduate, get our resignation, and have a handful of exams under our belt, to immediately enter the public service, or possibly go into private practice first before choosing to enter the public service?
Very good question. I have to be careful to remain politically correct. Let's say that private or public is not important. I think what is important, however, is that you through your career, you travel through different employers, not only one all your life. This will help you to become, I think, a better actuary, and to work in different working environments with different people will help you to shape the actuary you would like to become. So it's not a matter of private and public. Always are possible. Again, but I would suggest for those where it's possible to have more than one employer in your life. However, I will caution that if you have one person who he was on the workforce for 7 years with 7 different employers, don't go that far.
Of course. Thank you.
Not a problem.
Thank you very much, Jean-Claude. That's it's been a very good meeting. Thank you. We really appreciate you taking time and coming to visit Carleton University, this time virtually. So perhaps in the future we will have an in-person visit. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you all. And stay safe.